Can every course be gamified? I would have liked to have started this video by saying that this is a frequently asked question, but it's not. It's a frequently answered question, and most of the time I come across this, the answer is no, not every course can be gamified. But I say yes it can, and it can be gamified well. And in this video, I'll show you why. To answer the question of whether everything can be gamified and gamified well, let's define what you need to gamify something well. Recall that in a game, players perform actions towards some goal, which is a desired outcome, and they may or may not reach that. So the outcome's uncertain, and of course, the player will be aware of what the outcome is no matter what it ends up being. In the process of learning, there's a learning objective, which is a desired outcome, which the learner may reach more or less well. They'll get closer to it as they improve in knowledge or skill. That distance between the ideal and their performance gets measured and communicated back to the learner in the form of feedback. The learner can use that feedback to improve. See where I'm going with this? When you gamify your training, ideally you want to map this learning process to your game loop. That ensures a great fit between your game mechanics and your learning objectives. It's not always perfectly possible to do that, but the closer you can get to this, the more chance you have that your mechanics will become an engine that helps drive the learning. That's what I'll call gamifying well. And when you're designing a gamified training, you're the one who decides what game elements to put in, so you can put in these ingredients. So I'm not too worried about the game side of this equation. But in order to tie these elements together, your course needs to have the corresponding hooks that you can tie to your game mechanics. I'll call those hooks for interactivity, and they are, number one, a range of inputs or actions on the part of the learner. That means that in your course, the learner can make some decisions. So it's not just click next, but rather different learners can make different decisions, answer questions differently, or go different ways. These are sometimes called affordances. It's the range of what a user can do in a program. Number two, a range of possible outcomes. So depending on the learner's decisions or inputs, different outcomes will happen. Number three, a measure of performance. Among those possible outcomes, there's a desired one which the learner can hit perfectly or wind up at some measurable distance from. So beyond just finishing the course, you can finish the course or learning activity with more or less success. And finally, opportunities for feedback. So depending on the outcome, the course should be able to give the learner individualized feedback on their performance. At the very least, you should be able to see how well you've done. That doesn't seem like a high bar when you look at it that way. Most courses have those things. And again, your course doesn't even need to have all these hooks or even any of them to be gamified, but the more of them you have, the closer you can get to great gamification. Now, if you're looking at a course and you want to evaluate if it can be gamified, and if so, how well, you're going to ask yourself, does the course offer these hooks, and if so, how many? And that depends a lot more on the format of the course than on its content. Does the format allow the learner to make choices? Can the format give the learner individual feedback, etc.? So rich formats like interactive e-learning or instructor-led training in a classroom, those formats, they offer the hooks in spades. People don't always use them all, but the format allows it. So if your course is in one of those formats, yes, they can be gamified, no problem. But I often get asked about gamifying weirder things like videos or even books. So let's talk about that for a sec, taking video as an example. What can the user do with a video? Well, not much. There aren't many affordances with a video. The user can watch, they can pause, they can scrub backwards and forwards, and that's about it. There is software to make videos more interactive where the video will pause and then give you a choice between options, and that'll take you to a different part of the video based on your choice. And that new bit of video could be used to give you feedback about your choice and lead you to new choices based on that. So that gives my videos all of the hooks: player choice, range of outcomes, measure of performance, and feedback. Some people make choose your own adventure games using YouTube videos. You watch a story, and at some point in the video you come to a decision point, which is simply links to different YouTube videos that will continue the story according to your choice. By the way, if you're interested in checking that out, I'll put the link down in the description below. But in both cases, I'm cheating a bit because it's not a video, is it? In one case, I use the software to add affordances to it, and in the other, it's actually a bunch of videos on a platform that allows the user to make choices. But you get the idea. If you're stuck with a slightly odd format like that, ask yourself what the affordances are, what the user can do with it, and what you can add to it to add more of these hooks for interactivity. So that's format, and that's where most of the answer lays about whether something can be gamified, and if so, how well. Content, that is what the course is about, doesn't really have a lot of incidence about whether your course can be gamified. As long as your course is designed around learning objectives and aims at some transformation, and you can measure the extent to which that's reached, then it can be gamified no matter what the content is. So the only quote-unquote courses that this doesn't apply to are the ones where they have a legal obligation to sit people in front of the same VHS tape every 6 months for compliance, and nobody cares or checks if the person's actually understood anything. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about courses designed to actually reach learning objectives, or at least evaluate whether the person knows what they should. So if you pick the right format that gives you some hooks, then every content can theoretically be gamified. But in order to gamify it optimally, you still have to decide which game mechanics you'll use, and here content matters a great deal. You need your game mechanics to be pulling in the same direction as your content towards your learning objectives. That fit between the two will determine the training game's effectiveness. So, long story short, yes, every course content can be gamified as long as you have choice of format, and it can be gamified optimally as long as you choose your game mechanics to fit your content. Thank you very much for watching. Happy designing, and I'll see you next time. The you have, the closer you can get to great